I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hello everyone, welcome to the Lethal Venom Podcast, the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth no less told. Today I'm joined by Miss Ann Webb. She is the host of the Animal Intuitive channel on YouTube and podcast. She's also an animal communicator, acupressure, and massage instructor, as well as a licensed clinical social worker. She helps people deepen their connection with animals through intuitive work and holistic modalities without the woo-woo overload. Her approach is grounded, practical, and heart-centered. She's loved to share in she loves to share inspiring stories and valuable tools with her audience. She's also the author of Misha's Heart Adventure, The Emotional Regulation While Learning How Animals Think and Feel, and with the accompanying Misha's Songs album, with popular songs streaming on social media songs, including Rub My Belly and Walking Down the Street. She also has a background in mental health and has been featured on numerous podcasts. And has been with numerous guests, including Temple Grandin, Dr. Gary Brugada, and Burgess, who was a former FBI profiler and inspiration for the Netflix show My Hunter, as well as being a guest with Catherine Ramsland to discuss animal abuse prevention. So I would like to give a huge welcome to Anne. Thank you so much for coming on today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So if you could just introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about what you do.
Okay, well, you did a great job, but I'll just sort of expand a little bit. I am a professional animal communicator. I have been doing this about 20 plus years at this point. It's been over 20 years. I, what that means for people who are kind of new to that terminology is that I connect in with animals and understand what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and that could be emotionally, it can be physically what they're feeling. So that's more like medical intuitive work, sometimes we call it. And for the purpose of some people just want to know what their animals are feeling and thinking on a deeper level. But it can also be used for a variety of reasons, like better understanding why an animal might be acting in a certain way, why an animal is going through some kind of illness or other issue that might be behavioral. And for whatever reason, the vets have not been able to figure it out. Or it can be that they have gone through something and we're just sort of trying to check in and see how that animal feels about the treatment that they're getting, how their bodies, how their psyches, and how they just feel overall about things like, what does this treatment feel like for this animal? As I'm sure all have experienced, maybe we've been prescribed something or we're taking supplements or what have you, and it might be affecting us in a way that might be different than is expected, or, so everyone's different. So animal communication essentially can just help you understand what an animal is experiencing on a variety of levels in pretty much any situation. how they're adjusting to a new home, a new pet in the home, a new family member, what they think about your girlfriend, what they think about the home you're living in. They can provide insight into people's lives. Um, they're always listening, they're always watching us and picking up on what's going on in our lives. So they can be a wonderful source of, because they're just so pure and all they want for us is the best. And so they can provide insight into, yeah, hey, this person that you've been dating, I really like them. I think that they're good for you. And or it might be an animal conveying a displeasure of something that's going on in that person's life, or even something that the animal's being fed, or the dog next door. So pretty much anything and everything you can think of. I also use it in my work with animals as an acupressure practitioner and massage practitioner because it helps me to tune in to what's really going to benefit them most. And again, that's kind of the medical intuitive piece. And I can talk about that a little bit more, how I got into that. But basically, the animal communication led me to that, and energy work led me to that. And I also work with humans as far as doing hypnosis, brain spotting, things that are somatically based practices that help people. And I really focus on two things with that. Um, I do have a background as a licensed clinical social worker, which I still maintain my license. But my background was very heavily trauma and abuse. I started out in the New York City foster care system and went from there into various different mental health roles, especially with traumatized children and adults, and also offenders, and got kind of burnt out on that work. I went to work eventually for big healthcare. And I then went from there to working mostly when it came to, I really took a break and then came back to just working with people for things like improving their performance, whether it be with or as animal communicators, or things like other performance goals, singing, acting. Um, but hypnosis and these kinds of modalities that I use can be used for anything. So, and I did eventually parlay that into the book that you mentioned. Of course, we could talk about that more later, but I have a passion for helping people to bring out of themselves their ability to communicate with animals. Many people, depending on where we live in the world, what our society is like where we live, what our home environment is like, have lost the connection and that kind of ability to know and trust their guts. That's something that I think is so important. And it's really the crux of animal communication. If you can trust the information that you're getting, then you're able to help animals because you can be their voice. And I have a passion for helping people reach their highest levels with that. So I do that through my Animal Intuitive Academy, my classes. And I have a special offer for your guest today. We can talk about that too as we go on. But yeah, so it kind of all works together. I like to bring out the animal communicator within people and help animals be able to get their voices heard. And that's also the crux of my channel, is to give animals a voice and help pet parents, support the pet parents who just love their animals and really just want to be able to help their animals and give them the tools to do that at home. So I'll do things like lessons on animal communication, lessons on acupressure, massage, things like that to help people to be able to learn this stuff. And I actually have a hypnosis coming out shortly that I'll have on YouTube for free, but I do have hypnosis on my Intuitive Academy too.
So, go a little bit into more detail about how the animal communication works and describe the process that you use to help get into the mindset of when you're about to try to read a pet's mind.
Mhm. So it really comes down to being grounded and centered. If anybody who's listening has ever done either hypnosis or done a meditation, a guided meditation, or what have you, or even taken a nice long walk through the woods and found that they just feel more grounded, more centered. That's really where you start. You need to get to that place to be able to pick up on what animals are thinking and feeling for the most part. I mean, the longer you do it, the easier it becomes. You don't have to necessarily spend maybe so much time getting prepared. But I, even at this point, doing this over 20 years professionally, take that time. If I have a session coming up, I'll always take some time prior to getting on the call with the person to get centered, get grounded. So I'll do some self-hypnosis or meditation. Um, it's important to take care of yourself too. I find that exercise is good because it releases tension, releases, it kind of gets your mind in a more grounded space. But after all that, after you kind of gotten yourself physically and mentally prepared, you're really being there. You're just being in a space to receive the information from the animal and send it to the animal. So I often will work with pictures. I don't have to have a picture though, but I'm sending telepathically, which means, you're not using your spoken words. You're usually picturing the animal in your mind's eye, or you are looking at that picture of them. And energetically, you're coming from a heart space. So animals are really able to connect with us when we can go into that solar plexus center. If people know their chakras or that kind of thing, it's the energy center, the center of our like our heart, the front of our body, the upper front of our body, that place. We just kind of picture them there and send them information. It's a little hard to completely describe and have someone get it until they try it. But you learn what is the information coming from the animal versus what is your own information. That's part of the preparation because the more grounded you are, the more you're able to say, okay, I've dropped the tension from that conversation I had with the telemarketer today. I'm in my centered space. So if I receive the emotion of anger and we're talking about something with the animal, that has to do with perhaps the animal being angry. It's the animal's feeling of being angry. And I will get sentences in my mind. So they're like thoughts, but I know that they're not my thoughts because they don't have anything to do with me. The topic is what we're talking to the animal about. Normally people will, normally what I'll do is I'll start off by just connecting with the animal and saying something about them or what the animal has to say to start so that the person can get that that is their pet. So it's often something that there's just not a way I would have known what this thing is. And I tell people, pay attention to the things that mean nothing to me. Like I'll often say, this just absolutely means nothing to me. I did an episode of my channel a few episodes ago where I talked about a dog who started off by showing me this very colorful coffee mug. It almost looked like handmade or something. It had like a lot of colors all over it. And then showed me drinking out of the coffee mug. And I said that to the pet parent, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I just finished my coffee, and that's my coffee mug. And he likes to drink my coffee." So that set the groundwork for us knowing, okay, this is your dog. We're connecting with your dog. And then moving forward with whatever questions that the pet parent has, and also receiving whatever information the animal wants to get across. And so I might see a little video in my mind. Often I see things in my mind's eye and get a feeling. The feeling is very important. And it's something that I think is it's the main thing that people have to work to get is the whole picture. So many, almost 100% of the time, my students will have communicated with animals in a way that I can bring them to in the first time we meet, the first class, they can get into a state where they can kind of go back in time and remember a time when they understood what a pet was, or an animal, it doesn't even have to be a pet, what an animal is telling them or trying to convey to them, or that the animal picked up on something that they were feeling or thinking, and they just knew they were being completely understood. They can really often do that. The work comes with trusting the information that you're getting and becoming familiar with how you receive it. So, and also making sure that you're getting the whole picture. So that feeling is really important. And you might get smells, you might get tastes. So a dog describing how their food tastes, or maybe that they haven't been interested in their food. It's because something's going on where they don't like the smell of it, or it reminds them of medication that was put in the food before, and now they don't want to eat that food anymore. So, and then also, I'll get feelings like I mentioned in my body. Like, so I'll be talking to perhaps a dog who's got pain in their wrist, let's just say their left wrist, and I'll feel that, or I'll get pulled to that part of either my own body, or I'll get a visual, something drawing me to that wrist. I'll just see it in my mind's eye.
So can you share a few stories about some interesting things that have happened during a consultation? Some funny ones too.
Yeah. So the last actually episode I just recorded was about a dog who, this isn't exactly funny. Interesting is more what I would say. It's on the top of my mind because I just posted it. And I'm sorry, some work is going on outside. So if you are getting sounds from like a lawnmower, I apologize. But I was talking to this dog, and there was some concern about this dog's behavior. And what it really boiled down to is how much the dog was picking up on stressors that were going on in the home that actually were, for the most part, good stressors. And that's kind of the topic of that episode that I just put out, that animals are very much creatures of habit. They like homeostasis, especially cats. And if things disrupt that, and so it can be even, when our energy goes up, if that makes sense, we kind of get that like up feeling, excited feeling. Um, it can turn into sometimes, I don't want to say a negative, but if you have something going on, like say that you're going through the purchase of a home, people know that that can be a very stressful process, even if they're very excited about this home that they're going to be purchasing, right? So, or moving to a new town that you're really excited about moving to, but you have a lot you've got to go through to get from point A to point B. And, just dealing with, movers and packing and whatever, can be disruptive and stressful. And animals are so sensitive that they pick up on all of that. So the benefit of animal communication is helping them to understand more about like what is going on. So they may be picking up on, okay, they have the sense that they have a change coming up, say a new house, or they're moving. They might get that idea from you, but they're sensing this energy of you of like of chaos, or turmoil or stress, or anxiety, and that's what they're picking up on. So it really helps to take time to sit with them, and even just trusting that putting your hands on them and being with them and sending them the message that it's going to be okay, this is temporary. um, and quieting your own energy and grounding yourself so that they can experience the humans in their home in a more centered way. They need that from us. That's so important that we give that to them, because they're really energetic little beings at the end of the day. Now, I'm trying to think off the top of my head funny things that have happened. Um, It'll come to me. I'm trying to think of something that, well, okay, I had a cat recently that um she made a comment about, well, I was just talking with her about something that the pet parents wanted to talk about, but she made it very clear that her favorite was the husband, and it was pretty dismissive in the way that she referred to the wife in the couple. And it was funny. I mean, the woman didn't take it personally. She already kind of suspected it. And I also tell people before I do sessions with them, not to give me a lot of information because I like to work really clean. It can be, you don't want to get information about an animal that would going into it because it can potentially, um, the longer you do it, the more able you are to put those things to the side. But it could potentially interfere, and it might even make the pet parent question the information that they're getting. Oh, is this just something that because I told you this or whatever, whatever. So I really try to just have people tell me the main point of the call. I have a pet who's got some illness going on. I want to talk to you about it, whatever. But it was pretty funny the way this cat was so dismissive of her, but they handled it pretty well. They weren't, she wasn't particularly offended by it. I have a cat with a similar attitude towards me. So I understand loving the little being despite their favoritism for your partner, for my husband. I could relate to it.
So when it comes to this process for animal communication, can anyone communicate with animals, or is it a special gift that you have to have?
That's a great question, and it comes up frequently. I 100% believe anybody who loves animals and is willing to practice and take the time can communicate with them. I think it's a gift that we're all born with, that it's an ability that we're all born with. It it's just a branch of our ability to have intuition that it just kind of gets, unfortunately for many people, it just kind of gets suppressed and or dismissed. I can remember communicating with my cat Dolly when I was a little kid and knowing what she was thinking and feeling, but I didn't understand it. It wasn't until I went to a class for animal communication or was invited to the class on animal communication. My mother actually was invited to the class. She asked if I wanted to come with her to the class. And when she told me what the class was, it was like, it literally was like, and I've said this like 8,000 times, but it was like just this light bulb went off in my head and the connection was made. And I was like, oh, I've been doing this all my life, but it was like breathing. And I guess because it's not so much, it's not really talked about, and maybe now it is becoming more talked about, but it wasn't most of my life up until very recently. I've heard, I get the inkling that it's with social media, it's starting to be more in the vernacular. But uh, for me growing up, it was just that would be very odd. Like, it just didn't really come up. That was like fantastical, like Dr. Dolittle. Like that's not, something that the average person does. And more than likely, this has been around for an extremely long time. Native Americans talk about in their background that there was a connection to the animal world, to nature, to where this was more just like part of it. It was just accepted. And unfortunately, it got suppressed, dismissed, mocked, whatever you want to call it. But I think that most people, they just want just to set your mind to it and you can do it. I very much believe that. Some people it might take a little bit more practice, and usually the practice is more about your own energy and working with that and noticing when and how you need to maybe make some shifts. Um, Make sure maybe you need to be doing more hypnosis, meditation, and that kind of thing more frequently. Um, Things like getting rid of toxins in our environment and in our food can also help make us better conduits for this. So that's part of it. It really is something that can change your life and set you down a different trajectory, a different lifestyle. And it's all good. I mean, it's all about trying to kind of make a more to be a more clean receptacle, so to speak, for information. Receptacle is not a great word, but a clean receiver of information. And that's body, mind, and spirit. It's the whole picture.
Is it possible for you to be able to talk to animals that have passed on and be able to talk to their spirit?
Yeah, it is. It's something that I think is really important for people to understand that even if an animal crosses over, they leave their body, that you're always going to be connected to them. It's such an awful hard thing to go through when an animal passes. I've known three people in the past 2 weeks that in my life who have had this experience, and it is just gut-wrenching. It's just heartbreaking. And especially the way, people, there's sort of this thing in our society where it's like, it's not that nobody has empathy for somebody who's lost a pet, right? But it's often like a very different story in the weeks and months following if you've lost an animal compared to having lost a person in your life, let's just say. Even the fact that jobs they don't even give a person time off. Maybe you can use a day or two of PTO if you lose a pet. But think about too, also like all the time, oftentimes that goes into leading up to that event. It can be extremely emotionally draining. I've been through it myself with animals having illnesses. You're dealing with you're expected to sort of keep on going, and it's not the same as when you've got someone in your life who's a human who's maybe going through that process, coming towards that point. You're kind of expected to keep going, and there's just not as much empathy. And when an animal does cross over, then people are expected to just kind of go on, and there's no understanding that people can become very depressed, very have a very hard time when their animal has crossed. So I think if there's one thing we can do to help that is to support people in knowing that they can connect in with their animals even if they have left their physical bodies.
What do animals mostly want to talk to you about?
Often it's if they say that they don't like their food. It's usually nothing crazy. If the person isn't um let's just say nothing's going on, like there's nothing, not like any big deal happening in their lives. There's no major illness or what have you that the person's contacting me for. Um, if I just ask somebody, oh, just, hey, I just want to connect with my animal and understand him better. It's often little things like, I really liked that bed that I had, that white fluffy bed, and you took it away and you never gave it back to me. And the person forgot about it. Maybe they washed it and put it in a closet and decided that this other bed would be better for the dog for whatever reason. Or maybe they liked the color of it better and they thought it matched the furniture better. So they bought this new bed. And so little things, I like those treats that you used to give me. Why'd you stop giving me those treats and giving me these new treats? Um, the other thing I would say is that they will comment on the pet parent or people in their lives that they're close to. Um, Things will come up about them just kind of noting, like, you seem stressed out. I just want to kind of mention my mom seems stressed out lately, and they're kind of worried about them. Um, it's often selfless what they're talking about. It's often about their pet parents. And, they also oftentimes people say, I mean, I would say like almost every person I talk to says, do they know how much I love them? And I've never had an animal not know how much they love them. When people come to me, they're usually people who are very invested in their animal. And the message is really that the animals get that. They do feel it. They feel our love for them.
What's some misconceptions that people have about animal communication and the way of what you cannot do?
And the week. Well, I think this isn't exactly answering your question, but to start with, I would say the first thing, the biggest misconception is that it's a reading of some type. People, I think, associate it with like a psychic reading. And I'm always very clear that animal communicators do fall under, I guess, the umbrella of a psychic. It's not my favorite term for animal communication because to me, psychic conveys that perhaps you're going to somebody to have them tell you what your future is going to be. That's not really what animal communication is. Sometimes things do come up about the pet parent. Often they do. You kind of have to be prepared for that. But I'm not here to tell someone their future. And I think that the future is very malleable, changeable, even if right now, as things stand, this is the future of the situation going forward, anything can shift that. So that would be a big misconception, that it has something to do with readings, things like that, future psychic, that kind of thing. Also, that you're not, you aren't hearing a voice coming in from outside of your brain, like a Dr. Dolittle kind of thing. It isn't like that. It is very much like you just have an understanding, a knowing. And that may be also in the form of words in your mind, but it's not coming from outside of your brain. Did that answer your question? I kind of forgot what that question was. You said that wasn't exactly what you asked, was it? You said something a little different.
I think it pretty much answered it. I mean, I'm not this whole conversation is real interesting to me because I've heard about psychics when they talk to humans. I've never really done it from animals' perspective. So it's actually all this is all interesting to me. So learn I think what you said answered the question pretty good. Um you also had mentioned earlier that you do acupressure and you do massage. How does this help animals exactly?
So pretty much anything that a human would go for body work for acupressure massage, if anybody out there has done either one of those, you can do this for animals. So acupressure really works on the meridian theory in Chinese medicine, that we have meridian lines that flow through our bodies, and acupressure can help to remove blocks in those meridian lines and pathways. So they can help with congestion in the body. They can help with immune system support, really anything that might be off in any part of the body. It can help the body to sort of help itself to get things going, to get things moving. Move qi, which is energy. That's the word for energy in Chinese medicine. And get things in balance primarily is what acupressure's purpose is. And massage is similar. It helps to get things in balance. It's just coming at it in a little bit of a different way. Uh, I practice different aspects of massage to help with that, like cranial sacral, to kind of help with saying that an animal is more emotionally imbalanced. That can help with that. Lymphatic massage can help move lymph through the body, which is so important for the healthy functioning of a body. Um, and just regular massage itself, just petrissage, just a regular massage you might think of, basic massage, just helps to keep things flowing in the body, get things moving, and also help with relaxation, which, just lowering lowering stress level in general. Both of both of those modalities can help with lowering stress level, and that just in and of itself is going to be helpful. They can both help with reducing inflammation in the body. So really anything and everything that, we think of massage and acupressure for humans can benefit animals. It can help post-surgically, pre-surgically, really anything. And I think it also is wonderful just for connection. That's why I have a class I developed for animal communication. It's an intro class, but it really goes pretty deep. And I incorporated acupressure into that, both for the person who's doing the animal communication for the human, but also for the animal. So in the class, I take people through some acupressure points to do on themselves to help with grounding, which is also I do use acupressure too to prepare for my sessions, and also the acupressure with the animal because that can just help with the connection that people have. I think sometimes people feel like I can't, I'm having trouble connecting, especially when they're starting out with animal communication. And just by putting your hands on them and doing these points, it can just help. It just helps. I don't really, have the language for it, but that physical connection can just help with feeling in touch with them and in tune with them and being able to have that free flow of information going back and forth.
If people, since you have been doing the animal communication, what's been, what's been some of the feedback you've received over the course of your professional career that you've really appreciated to hear?
Well, a couple things just sort of jump out. I always appreciate anybody that I work with, but there are situations that kind of jump out, like where I've helped find animals that are missing, or, and I didn't really talk about that, but I do some work with missing animals still. I used to do more of it, but it takes up a lot of time and energy, so I don't do quite as much of that now, but I do some. But also people who just are trying to make decisions that are hard about the future of their pet, animals that are getting near the end and that kind of thing, just helping them to be able to figure out what the animal needs and wants, what their perspective is. Um, those are some of the more difficult things that you do as an animal communicator. And there are things that I think that my counseling background has helped me a lot with. And I feel it's really important that people get good training because you are going to come up to these situations if you're going to do this with other people's animals. You're going to have situations that are very difficult, and it's good to have the training in ethics and the background to have worked through, well, what do we do in this situation? How do we, what are the boundaries too? Because we aren't counselors in this situation. What do we do? Do we need to help someone, refer them to a counselor, but or a different type of vet, that kind of thing. So that stands out to me. People that I just worked with somebody who lost their dog, and the dog crossed over recently, and knowing how much that helped them to be able to connect in with them, that does mean a lot to me.
Who's been some huge inspirations of people that you've looked up to while you've been an animal communicator?
Inspirations, first and foremost, I will say that I am a Christian. So above all would be God. I go to God for help before every communication that I do. I pray. And the information I receive or convey during those sessions, I believe is based on what God wants for that session. That's just my belief system. And I understand that's not everybody's life. That's not how everyone looks at it, but that's me. Um, and I really try to look to I mean, if you're going to look for inspiration and how to be in this world and how to treat others, Jesus is my role model. So I can't really put anyone up there with, when you start there. I did get training myself before I went into business. As I said, I did this growing up and I went to that first class and I was getting a lot of clear information and knew that it was something that I wanted to pursue. But I also knew that I wanted help with that. Like anything I've ever done that's become a career choice for me, whether it is being a clinical social worker or hypnosis, whatever, I would always get the best training that I could find. That's very important to me. So I had that benefit. I trained with people like Penelope Smith. She's probably one of the most well-known animal communicators out there. And I had that opportunity to work with her one to one for and be able to teach her course for a while. I did that, but then I ended up doing my own thing, teaching my own stuff. And that I would say, also I would say my mother, my gosh, like she is one of those people that has worked hands on nitty gritty in an SPCA in upstate New York. She would just tirelessly from the time I was, I think, 15, she would go there on the weekends, super early in the morning, taking her time off, cleaning cages, helping animals get back to health, and just for no pay, completely, volunteering, you know, um, getting dirty. And she's helping them probably more than I ever have. When I think about people who do that hands-on work, rescuing animals, um, that's inspirational to me. And she doesn't get any interview on a podcast or a YouTube channel or anything like that. So
If someone's out there listening to my show now and they would like to maybe try to start being an animal communicator or they're interested in learning more about this, what advice do you have for them if they would like to learn more about animal communication and would like to potentially start and become one?
yeah, I would say go for it. Find the teacher that feels right for you. Do some searching around. I would love to work with you more than likely, but it's always good to see if you're a good fit. And I do have an offer for your audience. It is a coupon code that they can use on my website for my digital products. So I have hypnosis, I have the class I mentioned, the that I really tried to make like an at-home retreat. It's animal communication and acupressure, as well as mindfulness, and just sort of made it into a time that you and your pet even can just be together and learn animal communication together at home at your own pace. You get the whole thing. You can download it, keep it for yourself. It's yours forever. And you get the hypnosis with that if you decide to take that class. And there's payment plans on the website. But the coupon code is Venom. Or lethal, sorry, lethal for your podcast, lethal 10. So that's 10% off any of my digital products on my website. So if you go to intuitivetouchanimalcare.com, and my name is Anne with an E, Angelo Webb. Sometimes you put in these, maybe it'll be in your description or whatever, but sometimes you put in these things and they get crisscrossed with other uh, people who maybe have used, that's my trademark, but whatever. You might get sent somewhere else. So Anne Angelo Webb is my name, Intuitive Touch Animal Care. And if you go there, you'll see right there where there'll be like a purple button that'll say to go to Animal Intuitive Academy, and it will take you off of my main website to my academy because with the classes and everything, it's difficult to house them on your own website. It's a long story with tech stuff, but that is on, for now, I have it on Podia. So it'll take you over there though. But if you go to my main website and just use the coupon code lethal10 on any of those digital products on the class or hypnosis. And that's a good way to start. I also do some group classes online live. I also have a playlist on my on the Animal Intuitive channel. Again, if you're searching for it, I would go use my name, the Animal Intuitive channel, and Angelo Webb, and that's Angelo, not Angela. And there's playlists on my channel. I have like this, I just put out my 169th video. So there's playlists for animal communication, for animal acupressure. I have guests on there that, you mentioned some at the beginning, it's very eclectic because I really am interested in a lot of things. I went to school for criminal justice masters and social work. So I'm really interested actually in things like true crime, which maybe people don't associate with the animal communicator, but I really am. And I've had people like Ann Burgess, who inspired the Netflix show Mindhunter, and Temple Grandin, who's an animal person for sure, um, and Tallgrass Animal Acupressure. They, excuse me, they are the primo acupressure school. And that's who I trained with. And I now teach for them, which is wonderful. I'm now an affiliate teacher for them, and that I have a playlist for them. They are really excellent to learn from. Amy Snow and Nancy, they are absolutely wonderful. And just see who's out there that works for you. If it's not me, it might be someone else. And I also have the podcast on the channels like Spotify and Apple, any podcast. For some reason, I think it's under show instead of channel, though, on the podcast, just the audios, but you can still find the Animal Intuitive if you look up Ann Angela Webb. So I just learn. And also, if you've got kids in your life and if you like music, really, it's a book and music for children, but it's adults love it. And it can help you just get back to that kid in yourself that knows that you have this connection with animals, that knew that your animals in your life and you just had this special bond and you understood them. And that's what that book is about. But it also helps with things like emotional regulation. It's woven in there through Misha, the main character, the dog. And the music has done amazingly well. It's been used in a lot of, I didn't really look at numbers for many years, but then I went back to look, oh, how is this doing? Like I would get checks sometimes, and then I look back to see because you get very little when you get compensated for music that's been used in reels and things like that. So I never really thought it was that much. And then I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, like one of the songs, Rub My Belly, had been used between Rub My Belly and Walking Down the Street, like over 20,000 downloads and different reels like on TikTok and Instagram and things like that. And I don't really do TikTok, so that's not really my deal, but they those songs are very popular. So you can find those too. That's the Misha Songs album. And the book can be found anywhere books are sold, including Amazon.
Well, as I always will do with my guests, I will put all of these links in a description box below.
Oh, that's so nice.
I will put her website, I will put her social media platforms in the description as well. I'll put her book, her podcast, as well as the album down there as well. So it's all easy access for you, for my listeners to find, so that you're not scouring the internet for hours trying to find it. It's all in one place. It'll be easy access. And remember to use the code Lethal10 to get a 10% discount on any of the courses and any of the things that are sold on her website. Feel free to use that code. Again, that is Lethal10, and I'll put that in the description box as well for as a reminder. Um, and thank you so much for coming on. I had like one question, kind of like off topic, but do you do readings on camera or like on Zoom, or do you have to have the animal in person to do a communication read?
Definitely don't need to have the animal with you. I do all phone calls and I also do wellness plans, which would be like if somebody wanted to do a more all-encompassing plan for their animal at home, that they can do acupressure at home for their pet. So I do animal communication and then I also do in the plan based on traditional Chinese medicine, I do an assessment of their animal and send them all that information. There's images, they get charts, really pretty charts, beautiful. And also there's some videos that they can use to be able to start to do acupressure with their pet. And those are my wellness plans. But I do all of either by phone, or some people just prefer me to send them the email information or printed version of the conversation I've had with their pet and they're not on the phone. I don't really do Zoom calls for animal communication. Um, but there are some demonstrations back in my playlist on YouTube. I used to do like a call-in show a couple years ago. Kind of got away from that. It was getting to be a little bit difficult to coordinate, knowing if I was going to have someone calling in or not, and the connection sometimes didn't work and things like that. And people were, it was kind of getting to be a little bit of a drag. People were kind of taking advantage of it a little bit. So I ended up stopping that. But their phone calls. I don't really do anything in person anymore, except for very locally. I'll do massage and acupressure.
But the only reason why I asked is because whenever I've seen some people on Podmatch do like, and they're like it's professionally into psychosis where it's like they kind of can read an animal's mind, and I want my cat's mind read because I don't really talk about my pets on here. I've never really spoken about it, but I have two pets. I have a dog that's more normal, but we also have a cat that our cat was a rescue. We got him when I was I want to say freshman in high school. I think that's when we got him. He was taken away from his mom at a very young age. He was basically kind of found on the street as a stray, and a pet store uh, locally to us found him, and we adopted him from there. And he's just like the most weirdest cat I've ever seen. He doesn't drink any milk. He won't eat nothing dairy products. He won't eat fish. I,
Hmm.
he's the most weird cat I've ever seen. And I want his mind read because I firmly believe that he's been sent here from aliens.
Wow.
I I firmly believe that he's been sent here. He's just watching us. But I was only asking because I thought about maybe having you come back on and you could read my cat's mind for an episode.
Possibly. As I said, I've kind of gotten away from because it is, if it was something that, I mean, we could talk about it. It's, something that I stopped doing on my show even because it just kind of, it's an energetic investment of time and energy for sure. So, we could touch base about it, possibly doing something like that. I think I'd be doing it all the time if I kind of said yes to everyone who wanted me to do that. That's the only thing. I've had a lot of people ask me to do it, and it just kind of, as you can imagine, it's kind of like you're working, um, but possibly.
Well, and I also understand that if you don't do it over the thing like over Zoom, that I completely understand that. That's completely fine. It was just like a question I thought, there's no
Yeah.
harm in asking.
Oh, well, I mean, if you mean like do I do it at a distant, like voice audio? Yeah. Yeah.
So, that can be something we can discuss, and if we don't end up doing it, that's completely fine. And I understand why you would probably quit because people can be so unreliable. It's eh, you put a lot of work into it and then they don't show up. So I completely understand why you wouldn't want to do it anymore because
Yeah, it got
just
to be
how
a little
people are.
difficult. Yeah, it got to
Yeah,
be difficult on my show because it was like, oh, I'm gonna be calling in at this time, and I'm sitting there, and I don't have a topic for the show ready, or I've got to have a topic for the show ready just in case, and then end up not getting to the
yeah.
topic because the person ended up asking 50,000 questions, and we're like they were supposed to ask two, and so I kind of just got away from it. It was too much. It was just too much. People do need to keep in mind one thing I didn't really talk about, that animal communication is energy work. You do have to watch your energy when you do this work because it's not. something that, yes, you do develop the ability to have boundaries around it, similar to being a counselor, but we're sensitives. That's the only way I can put it. So people who are empaths, which is empathic people, um, are at risk of giving too much when it comes to this kind of work. Again, similar to being a counselor or being in any kind of field like that, where you're helping people or helping animals, you can really drain yourself if you're not careful. And sometimes there's kind of this strange expectation when it comes to, and I find this with counseling as well as animals, it's similar where um, there's this odd expectation that you should kind of work for free. Um, so people have to develop boundaries, and that's part of having the support of doing formal classes and training because there's a lot of situations you can get into where you need to be prepared for how to deal with them. And I need to do the same thing as a counselor. So that's just something for people to keep in mind. It's not, if people are thinking about doing this full time, it can be tiring, it can be stressful, it can be something that is wonderful and beautiful and very fulfilling, but you do have to take care of yourself too.
Well, hopefully all my listeners have learned some really good, helpful advice today. Just a reminder, all the links that we mentioned earlier will be in the description box. I'll put everything about details below. If you would like to follow me on social media to um, keep updates about the podcast and just learn and just keep up with the show, I'm on Instagram and TikTok. It's Lethal Venom Podcast on there. And Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, it is Noah's Podcast. And as always, you can also follow the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. It's on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, YouTube, Pandora. It's really everywhere. Just feel free to subscribe and follow it so that you'll be notified of when new episodes come out. It's totally optional. You don't have to do that. But um, other than that, I appreciate you all so much for listening, taking the time to sit down and tune in to today's show. Hope y'all have a great rest of your day and week. Y'all be safe, and I will catch you on the next episode of Lethal Venom.